Hey everybody, it's Peter, and this is the 2026 Triumph Scrambler 400XC. And if you've wondered about this bike, what we're going to do in this video is show you some of the things that the other videos aren't showing you. This is a bike I've been wanting to look at for a long time, and it's really kind of a premium branded bike stepping into a relatively affordable category, but still gives you some of those premium brand things. Now, of course, being a 400cc, it's going to sell like crazy around the world, but how does it do here in North America where 400cc's are less popular? Well, I think they've hit the right price point for features, and I think they've given us something that a lot of riders are really looking for. In addition, they kind of nailed the style. So we're gonna show you some of those things in here, but it's more than just style. This thing's actually got some function. It's got a 40 horsepower engine, which is very competitive for the class. And what it does is it sort of puts itself in the category as a really nice, equipped, as well as nicely styled bike that, again, all these manufacturers being pushed by the Royal Enfields and by the CF Motos of the world to create something that is affordable, enjoyable, and basically well equipped, and that's what Triumph's come through with on this, and that's why I want to show it to you, or I've wanted to show it to you for so long. So I'm filming here at Rally Motoplex. They give me complete access to their entire motorcycle lineup, and if there's anything you want to see, let me know that they carry all kinds of brands. They're going to spend the day here, do a few videos for you. We'll be back again to do a whole bunch more, even throughout the winter. So let's get going with this review. So the Scrambler class can be a lot of things, really, and just like every motorcycle, they can kind of skew more to one version than the other. What I'm going to do is simplify the Scrambler class when it comes to this particular model and basically say it's a mix between, if you're looking at general classes, a mix between a road bike, like a naked bike, and adventure bike. Adventure bike is going to be a little bit more capable right off the box from being maybe a little bit more off-road friendly, maybe a little bit more luggage friendly, in other words, able to do longer distances, where this is going to be kind of a standard bike that gives you just style. If you were to just drive it on the road, I think you'd be totally happy and you have some cool style. But it does actually give you some functional ability to go down the gravel roads, dirt roads, and some of the off-road type things that you'd want to do. For a lot of people buying adventure bikes, even someone like me, if you're not going to be doing the traveling and you just want something with a little bit of light off-road capability, this is probably a better class for you. For me, I like to be able to travel and that kind of thing, and I'm not saying this one can't, we'll talk about that in a second, but that's where the Scrambler kind of sits in. And you'll see it as we go through the components where there's that compromise style between road and off-road, but you can see this one, they've done a lot of little things to kind of make it equipped right out of the box, even without options for the types of riding that the typical Scrambler rider would want to do. So again, both style and features, that's what we're looking at. Let's start with the front wheel. So taking a look at the front wheel, if you've never seen my videos before, I always love to start with the front wheel because you can really tell the manufacturer's intent. Now, normally a manufacturer making a 400cc here in North America, they skimp out. They make a budget bike and that's it. That's not necessarily the case you get here. Now, you still have, budget components compared to the really expensive Triumph bikes, but you have some really interesting things that you may not see up front. First of all, semi off-road, on-road tires, it's a 19-inch diameter. So 21 would be a full dirt bike off-road. Some of the adventure bikes go 21. 17 would be a typical street bike. All the sport bikes run 17. So the 19 places it directly in the middle of a full off-road and an on-road bike. And what that does is a tire that's really large diameter loses some nimbleness but gains some rollover ability over rougher terrain. A tire that's smaller gains that nimbleness but loses that off-road terrain. So this is going to balance the two out. And in other words, if you're going off-road on a gravel road, dirt road, this is going to be a big enough tire to do everything you want. But they have some other things that are kind of interesting here. You have the spoke rims, which are super strong, and these are tubeless tires. A lot of people want tubeless tires on their off-road bikes. This one comes with that standard. So you, instead of having to upgrade later to something that's better for it later, it's used to be very rare to get spokes with tubeless tires, but these are spoked tires for strength. That's what you see in off-road bikes. And then you also have the tubeless tires. In addition to that, you've got the upside down suspension here. You've got the 150 millimeter travel. I have to convert that to inches for you, but 150 8mm travel front and rear, and the up-down forks, they're big piston forks, so you've got a quality fork here, should have a good ride, and then you've got quality brakes as well. A single disc is all you have. This bike's just over 400 pounds, and the single disc is a bi-brake caliper, which is pretty competitive for the class. That's Brembo's sort of entry-level category, and that's what you have here. So essentially Brembo brakes. They call it Brembo on the Canadian website, actually, even though it's a bi-brake caliper. So what you're ending up here is basically top of class components for anything in this class on the front wheel. So very good start for Triumph. So taking a look at the heart of this bike, you have a 40 horsepower single cylinder. Now that is sort of competitive. Royal Enfield has a 40 horsepower single cylinder, and that's kind of where these guys are going after. There are bikes that make in the 400-ish cc that have twin cylinders. Some of them make a little bit more power, but I think this is going to be exactly what you would want or need for a bike of this weight and size. And again, keeping the weight relatively low while still adding style. Now, some people are going to complain the weight isn't as low as it should be, but some of that comes from style. Some of that comes from function. So we're going to come in a little bit closer here and look at a few things that really make this bike feel and look premium while also adding function. So taking a look at the front here, you can see that you do have a liquid-cooled engine, so it's again fully modern engine, which is kind of what we expect. You also see the crash bars here built over the side. So again, on a bike that you might go off-road, it's nice to have some crash bars, nice to have a little bit of protection for that engine there. And then you get into some other functional details here. So let me see if I can zoom in here while I'm whoops, going the wrong way here. You got your brake pedal there, which is a very off-road style pedal. Now, a couple things that are pretty cool about that. The opening in the bottom, of course, allows it to clear mud, stay grippy, even when you want, you know, if you're heading off-road. You can see the foot pegs as well there. Has a rubber insert, that's gonna give you that smoothness for the road, but you can take those out, have just the metal serrated look for gripping your boots if you're heading off-road in dirty areas. The other cool thing is that little side piece on the brake lever. I'm gonna come over here and show you. If you put your foot here, you can just run your foot right in there. You're not gonna run into the engine. You're right solidly on the pedal. So again, when you're off-road and you're bouncing around a little bit more, you wanna be able to find that brake pedal, and that's, again, a little feature. Again, does that add a tiny bit of weight? Sure, it does, but it doesn't really matter because it adds a lot of function. So we're gonna come back out again here. I'm gonna show you, you may not be able to see it here, but there is an aluminum skid plate underneath there. You've got also the heat shields right there, so that's kind of nice to have. And then you still have some of the classic style, but again, when I said this is more of a premium thing, you can see this sort of the Scrambler name up there. We'll look at that a little bit later. You've also got on the engine here, if we can zoom in there, let's just go right in. There we go. You've got the, what does it say? Oh, I haven't got my glasses on, I'm trying to read that. TR Series 400cc. So you've got the nice sort of engine logos on here. And again, this all makes it feel a lot more premium in style than you would see on some other bikes in its class. So let me jump on, actually we should point out the rear tire as well. Rear tire is 140 wide, also tubeless. Some bikes are doing tubeless in only one of the two wheels now, which is a new thing that I know, it's just what they're doing, but that is tubeless as well. Spoke wheel and a 17-inch size. So again, a lot of dirt bikes will go 18, street bikes will go 17. So again, balances that out there and balances out in the front wheel. Now, let me show you what it looks like to sit on this bike. We'll talk about seating position and a couple other features. We'll continue to move around. So when you talk about seating position, any bike that is somewhat off-road is going to have a taller seat. Now, one thing I really find frustrating is trying to look at bikes on a website and looking at seat height. So I don't even list the seat height here. You can check that out on the website. But what I will say is I'm about 6 feet tall, and this seat is a little wider. Now, whatever the seat height is, the width of the seat can do two things. It can make you have to splay your legs out so it can feel a little taller, but it can also make it a little bit more comfortable. So what I will say here is this is a very comfortable seat. You can see I'm about 6 feet tall. I can flat foot in my shoes if I press down here, but a little bit of a like toe area here is not a big deal. The bike does feel relatively light. Now it is a 400cc bike, so you're gonna expect that. It's about 400 pounds. And again, you can see here, seating position is gonna be all day comfortable. You're nice and upright with a slight lean forward, that gentle slight lean forward. Might be a hair more than some adventure bikes, and I mean a hair more like an adventure bike might be here and you're down here. So it's really about the same comfort as a typical adventure bike. having some wind access you here, it's nice to have that slight front forward lean. You've got the rubber tank pads here, which is what Triumph has done for generations. So you've got that cool style with also the functionality. So when I'm in there, I can really grip the tank if I'm driving, you know, more sporty. But you also have the ability to stand up on this bike, which you can do relatively well. So it's a really good mix of seating positions. You do have a separate seat here than you have in the rear seat here, and there is some quality here that you don't see on every other brand. A couple other things I like, the handguards here are standard. So handguards are great off-road. If you're driving down a gravel road and something goes by you with big lug tires, it can shoot gravel at you. You don't want those hitting your fingers or your knuckles. So that's gonna protect you. A little brush in a trail, it's gonna protect you as well. And that's really what they're for. Is these aren't the super strong ones with the metal built in. These are just to protect you from some of those debris things that can come up when you head off-road. But they also serve very well to keep you a little bit warmer in the winter. And being almost December here in Canada, I'm not riding my bike anymore, but I do have these on my bike, and they saved me from needing heated grips. You wear proper gloves on these, and you may not need heated grips. If you want heated grips, you can add them to these. Speaking of some of the controls, we're going to show you the seat first. We're going to move out to some of the controls and look at some of the details of this bike as well. So as we take a look at the seat here, I want to show you some asymmetry to this bike that actually makes it visually interesting. One of the things that a premium bike will do is just add a bunch of visual interesting. So again, we're going to look at that seat in a second. You can kind of see the stitching on the side, that ribbed area there, the separate seat. All of that does make it look a little more high-end than some of its competitors. But take a look at this side panel here. I'm going to show you the identical side panel on the other side in just a second here because it is completely different. So this is the exact opposite side. The 400XC, I don't know if you can see it there, I'll try to come in there. There we go, Scrambler 400XC panel is completely different. And again, sometimes it's the asymmetry, sometimes it's the label on the engine. There's little things that make bikes visually interesting. And we sometimes, or at least regular people, don't always notice. They just look at a bike and go, hey, that bike is cool. And that's what you're getting here, is something that is pretty cool. So again, we'll take a look at that seat again, because I did promise you to take a look at the seat. It is something that feels a little more premium. One other thing I want to point out while I am here is you do have this rear bar here. This is of course style. A lot of people say you can hold on there. Most people aren't going to do that. They're going to hold on to the passenger in front. But because this exists, it allows you to very easily bolt on different kinds of accessories if you want to take some luggage or that kind of thing. So just having that for style allows you to swap it out with other things, or maybe sometimes get different style things that attach with it on. But that is a nice feature to have on a Scrambler, because it can turn this into a bit of an adventure bike by strapping on, or by bolting on some luggage onto proper mounting points that are made to carry some weight and have some strength to it. So that's pretty cool. One of the visually interesting thing before we head to the dash. Taking a look at the exhaust here, this is a couple things that are visually interesting, at least to me. It is a single cylinder motorcycle, so it does not need two exits or anything for any reason whatsoever, but you do have that two-hold exhaust there, so the two exhaust type look to it, which again, just single cylinder motorcycle, just makes it look a little bigger. The other thing that's kind of cool is they may look small on camera, but they're actually decent size openings there for a 400cc motorcycle. So you actually have a lot of airflow, but it also doesn't look nearly as small as it is. And that's one of the things with these new 400cc engines, is that a lot of the people who have had bigger bikes are moving to these smaller displacement bikes, and they're getting the style, performance, and quality because they're no longer just entry-level bikes anymore. They actually have some fun things to them. All right, one last thing before we go to the controls. Taking a look at the front of this motorcycle, a lot of bikes are doing these small windscreens, but this is what they would call a fly screen. You don't need it to be see-through because it's out of your way, so it is an area that you can add some color, add some design, some style. You could sticker it up yourself if you wanted to, but that is kind of cool. And then again, visually interesting, again here, ooh, coming down the wrong way here, you can see that you do have a protective grille over the headlight there. That is an LED headlight, full LED lights on this bike. But again, visually interesting, add some details to it, which makes this bike just kind of cool for what would be a 400cc bike. So the reason I want to point out all these visually interesting things is, like I said, it does make the bike stand out, feel more premium, but also they never used to do these on lower displacement bikes. They never used to have a high-end feeling. You always had to move up in engine size to get what felt like a quality bike, and that's not the case anymore, and you got to give Triumph some credit for that. So let's take a look at the dash here. We won't go through everything yet. If we want to do that, we'll do that in a separate video here. But again, a nice clean dash. What I really like is this mix of let's see if we can get things clearer than they are. this real mix of analog and digital type thing. So again, you're not having a full TFT display. A lot of people will say that's just fine here. Your tachometer is in there about 12,000 RPM. That to me is not my favorite part. I would prefer that the tach is a dial and the speed was listed digitally in the dash. Triumph does it a different way. Does it really matter? Maybe not. I do like dial style gauges though, because you can tell at a glance exactly where you are. Easier than some other things. Again, being a 400cc, you can kind of feel out how it feels and how it revs. It's not a big deal. You've got some extra things in here. It says engine off, which we know. It says side stand down. So you've got all the controls and pieces that you need in there. We can talk about the dash a little bit later, but you do have all the functions in here, even if you don't have a TFT dash. And again, given the style of the motorcycle, I think a lot of people are going to prefer to have this more analog look without sacrificing functions. Speaking of the visual interest here, we do have this little crash pad there, so another visually interesting thing. All right, let's check out the controls on this bike. So taking a look at the controls here, one thing I want to point out that you can't fully see on camera is that both of the clutch lever and brake lever are fully adjustable. What that does is, of course, if you have bigger or smaller hands, you can place that lever exactly where you need it, but it also kind of can allow that grab point to be exactly where you want it. Clutch feels very good on this. It is a slipper and assist clutch. I will say that for a 400cc, the assist side of things, in other words, the piece that makes the clutch feel a little bit lighter, is not super strong. So what I'm saying is there is still a regular motorcycle feeling clutch. Some bikes have a really light clutch in this class with the slipper and assist, but this doesn't have that. It has sort of a regular feeling assist and slipper clutch. What that clutch does though, is if you downshift and you mess up a downshift and you drop that clutch out, it's gonna allow the clutch to slip instead of the rear wheel. So it doesn't mean the rear wheel can't slip, but it does work towards that. It's a nice safety feature. It's also a good performance feature. They use it on race bikes. They also use it on as a great feature for beginner bikes. So over here, you've got a little flash to pass, and then you push it out for your high beam there. So that's a trigger button. That's pretty typical stuff. Information button here, you can cycle through the information on the dash, signals and horn over here. So basic controls, but you have all the information you need. Take a look at the throttle side. It is a electronic throttle, so you have that nice precise feel there. I will say these grips are a little extra grippy, which I quite like as well. Kill switch here, you have the hazard flasher lights right there, which is really nice to have, especially as you're exploring different roads, that kind of thing. You maybe don't know where you are, you can pull up the GPS. We'll talk about GPS in a second. Then you have the start switch down here. So typical basic controls, nothing too fancy. A lot of bikes get too complicated for the average rider. This isn't gonna do that. It gives you everything you need, nothing you don't, and it works well. Now, if we talk about a GPS, let's just show you the side of the gauges, because you can connect up a GPS or your cell phone by using a USB-C port. We'll show you where that is. So filming here at the front, this is your right side handguard. There's your headlight. There's your fly screen, as they call it, with the non-windscreen. In the center of your screen, we're gonna zoom in. We're gonna zoom in again. It says USB right there. So what we're gonna do here is pull it down. It is not a USB, it is a USB-C. So it's gonna fit your modern cell phone in there, and it is in a little bit of a water-resistant, waterproofy type rubber piece right there. So you can access that USB-C port, and of course you have the handlebars to mount up your phone or whatever else you want to mount up over on the dash. A couple cool things, just Triumph details again. They've adjusted the geometry to have everything close, which is going to give you that sporty feel, and they've given you the tank dents out there to allow that thing to turn full, have nice sharp turning angle. So again, little visual interest things, little details that make this bike special. All right, who is this bike for? Let's talk about that. So when we talk about who this bike is for, remembering it's a 400cc single with 40 horsepower, sure, it's an absolute option for beginners. It's a really nice option for beginners for sure. What I will say though is that what we're finding in North America, or at least what I'm finding, is a lot of riders are starting to enjoy smaller motorcycles. The rest of the world's been driving smaller displacement motorcycles forever, and North Americans went bigger and bigger and bigger, in part because of our roads. But if you think about taking any bike down the back roads, you don't need any more power than this. You can shift through all the gears and actually have fun enjoying that bike revving up and revving down. You're not second gear and just beyond using the shifter. It is that 6-speed transmission here, so that's kind of a modern number of gears as well. But what you end up with here is legitimately a bit more premium feel, so you didn't have to step up to those larger displacement bikes to get some of those things. Now, I'm not saying that Triumph doesn't make nicer bikes up the displacement. They absolutely do, but if you're coming from a little bit older bike, you really are stepping up in features to this bike here. The other thing I'll say is that a lot of us, including myself, are buying adventure bikes when scramblers are probably going to be better suited to our type of riding. This thing gives you a ton of style. Maybe you don't love that adventure bike style, but what you can do with this bike is you can take it down those gravel roads, take it down those dirt roads, and do all the exploring that you may want to do on a day trip. If you decide you want to go further, you can mount on some bags on here. There's options probably in the aftermarket, but even from Triumph, of course, to do that. You've got a lot of equipment standards, so you can take this out of the showroom floor and have everything you want. I happen to love this yellow color. I'm not sure how it's going to show up on video, but it really kind of stands out. It's kind of a, hey, check out my cool bike and kind of color. And it really is a cool bike, especially when you consider that it's going to be inexpensive to insure, it's going to be relatively inexpensive to buy, and you really are getting value out of this when you start looking at all the components. You don't have to add crash guards, you don't have to add a custom skid plate underneath, you don't have to add a bunch of little pieces and parts. It's got what you want to make it look cool, but of course you can accessorize it up if you wanted to from there. So overall, really impressed with this bike. Obviously there's going to be other riding reviews out there that are going to tell you something about that, but I hope this gave you a perspective on what this bike is all about, and I definitely think it's something you should consider if you're in that small displacement market. So there you go, lots more to film here today. We'll have more and more videos up in the next couple days, so make sure you stay tuned, and if you haven't hit subscribe yet, do that. We'll come back to you, we've got lots more to come.